connoisseurs of movies, television shows, and literature. Are you ready to shake things up? I know I am. Now, for those of you who don't know me, you may call me Luke Garou. And for those of you who do, welcome back. And thank you for sharing this with me. And Pupper, stop bapping your cone into things. You're making noise. Now, we are here to sink your teeth into my opinions of all things movie, TV, and book. And today we're dealing with the power of the mind. Now, have any of you out there ever read a book that you were so enthralled in, you forgot the real world entirely, that you didn't even realize you were reading a book? Now, I ask this because that's what happened to me when I was a teenager. I was at a camp that after the first day, I was officially done with. I didn't want to be there. It just wasn't for me, all right? So I asked the counselor of my little group if I could continue to read a very specific book by the little brook that was by the campsite. Pardon. The counselor said, sure. And I went and sat down. I found a nice little spot in the sun, happy as I wanted to be. Now, this was 8 a.m. that I sat down to read. The Sword of Shannara by Terry Brooks. Yes, he and his wife know a condensed version of this story. I told it to them when I met him at a Comic-Con. And he signed a copy of Sword of Shannara. Not this one. As you can see, this is one very well-loved copy that I kind of mended myself, and it thoroughly pissed off its original owner. So I ended up having to replace it for him. But this book is so well written that I did not know I was in a book. I did not know I was reading a book. I was Shay Umsford, the principal character, a cute little elf hybrid. And I had no idea there was anything other than the rocky mountain path I was walking on. A rocky mountain path that had a sheer drop to one side and a darn near vertical wall on the other. So that I either had to walk heel to toe or twist and side shuffle with my back along the wall. It all depended on the terrain, and my mind had me doing both at different times. To make it worse, the ground was quaking. And Shay falls so that he has to grab onto the narrow ledge he's walking on. He is holding on for dear life. His travel companions, a one-handed fella named Panamon Creel and a giant rock troll named Keltset, were screaming for him. But their voices were drowned out by the winds of the cavern. Not cavern, canyon. He's suspended over. And I am just being flung off this wall, feeling the rocks bite and rake against my fingers as the earthquake dislodges me. When I hear, "Shay!" and I look up, and the sensation of falling starts to fade away. I was back in the camp. I was safe. And I couldn't have been more sad. Because I went from this world, this fantastic and massive spoilers, post-apocalyptic world, back to the camp that I didn't want to be at. And it hurt. I felt like part of me was lost and missing. I mean, I even looked down at my hands as I was closing the book, seeing the cuts and scrapes that come from holding on and being pulled away from something. But even they too, with the pain, faded away. That's the power of your mind. It took very well-written words and turned them into an entire experience. Sight, sound, taste because of the wind, and the panting, getting mouthfuls of dust. Because as your companion walks, they brush the wall, which kicks up dust that you breathe in. And instead of being happy that I was back in the camp, the counselors were livid. You missed the chores. You missed our scheduled activities. You were unresponsive from 8 a.m. to noon. From 8 a.m. to noon, I was alive. At least I felt like I was alive. Having the best adventure imaginable. But because it wasn't their rules, I got in trouble. And they said I was not allowed to read. During the day. I was only allowed to pick up my book after the final meeting, and it was time to go to bed. So, instead of leaving me where I wasn't hurting anyone, I wasn't in the way, I was safe, I got yelled at and reprimanded and punished because I had found a way to ignore. And it wasn't even purposely ignoring. That's how good this book is. Shush. There's nothing out there, dog. Lay down. Nothing's out there. It's the neighbor's motorcycle. Even she's reprimanding me for liking the world of Shannara better than reality. It sucks. Because this novel is on par with Lord of the Rings in terms of its scale and its mythos. And what's really bad is that it's not talked about as much as Lord of the Rings. It had a television show out called The Chronicles of Shannara, and that followed more of the books after this one. And like a lot of shows, they took way too many licenses and merged way too many of the stories, so that even if they truly wanted to, they can't pick up the story, the rest of the stories. Now, you're wondering why I said post-apocalyptic. At one point, yeah, you're traveling in these gorgeous mountains and you're seeing these huge castles. But at one point, when you're traveling through a barren scape of crumbled steel and concrete, where roads were solid rock, you realize that they're walking through a city that had been destroyed somehow. Now, the television series, Chronicles of Shannara, show it as Seattle type city. But honestly, with the way it's described, it could have been any city in the continental US. Or anywhere in the world that had major skyscrapers. What made it worse or more harrowing is that the closer they got to this debris, the more peril they were in. And it wasn't even a peril they knew about, because as quickly as it arrived, it fled after it was attacked. And that was a huge mutated metal and flesh monster that could only be described as a metal human spider hybrid. I read that and wow, freaky, because you saw how quickly I got into the series, how deep I got into, and how vividly I saw this story. I'm betting you guys are wondering why I told you about the camp. And the reason why I told you is because there are people out there still that want to take people and stop them from having these epic adventures linked to the novels they read. They don't understand, they don't want to understand the power that a good imagination can have. Because part of being in this book made me think of the real world differently. We had to do a trust exercise. And it made me think of how Panama and Keltset were trying to rescue Shay. and how if the ledge would have been just half a foot deeper, they would have been able to kneel down and haul him up. I took what I learned and what I had experienced in the novel and started applying it to everyday life. Random, I know. Because like I said, I had no idea I was reading a book. And the saddest part is that thinking about it now is what would have happened to my vivid imagination, my epic struggle when the book ended. Would I have come back to myself? Everyone I ask says, yeah, sure. Once you close the book, of course you'd come back. But like I said, I was so deep in the book that nothing from the real world registered. My name, being touched, nothing. Oh, they tried. They tried from 8:30 to noon to get me out of that book. And nothing worked. Until the only friend I had started calling character names. Thankfully, I had told her everything about what I had read up to right before I started reading. So, if our minds can put us in such a state, what else can they do? Makes you wonder. As I've said quite frequently, for those out there who see health and wellness and benefiting mankind, there's also the antithesis of death, destruction, and chaos. All comes from the mind. I've said it for different movies and books as well. If it hasn't happened, it could happen because somebody reads it and gets inspired by it. Does that mean I'm advocating for the banning of books? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because for every one person that reads a book and takes it negatively, there's 15, 20 more that learn, grow, thrive because of it. So it all boils down to how does your brain, how does your mind process what you read? Are you reading it and saying this is an awesome fantasy? An epic adventure where you learn trust, teamwork, compassion? Because Shay, his entire life, had been taught the rock trolls and the gnomes. No, the trolls and the rock gnomes, my bad, are evil and dangerous. But then he meets Keltset. And he realizes that no, they're not. Not all of them. Hendel, the dwarf, he had all these prejudices, specifically against the rock gnomes. But then he had to be mended by the rock gnome healers. So why ban something so powerful as compassion, understanding, friendship? I mean, yeah, it has magic. It wouldn't be a fantasy novel without it. However, the magic isn't arbitrary. It's not this intangible. It is literally no. You are either born with it, like the elves or the druids, or you're not. It's not something you can learn if you are not already predisposed towards it. But again, that boils down to tolerance, understanding. Because later books, people turn against the magic users, showing bigotry, hatred, and blaming all the world's problems on the magic users. But again, this was about the power of your mind and how a simple story, and no, this is not simple. Like I said, this is a complex, epic adventure on par with Lord of the Rings. If you like Lord of the Rings, you will like Sword of Shannara. And how your mind can process that epic tale into something grand and life-altering, or if it just stays as words on a page. Let me know. Have you ever been sucked into a book so completely you forgot you were reading? If you have, how did people respond when you finally pulled yourself out of it? Were they thrilled that you had an adventure? Were they mad at you? Comment below. Like and subscribe. Hit the bell. Yeah, I know I'm missing a few steps, but I'm also filming while my muss and fuss are away, and they should be coming home soon. So, kindness is the key to understanding. So be kind to me, be kind to each other in the comments, and have a great day, great evening, and bye.